The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Luke, were you able to attend the last Bob leadership session?
No, I wasn't.
Okay, fine. That's good. And Jack's saying that she wasn't there either, so that's helpful. It just means that I'll go through the pack more fully. If you move to slide 3, really. Oh no, beg your pardon. You can tell I'm not good at doing these, but I'll get better as we go. Forgive me. In effect, we are planning a series of packs, and the packs will build on each other so that we'll provide a high level of information at this meeting, and in the next pack that we provide you, we'll go into more detail. So if there is anything, however, that you would prefer more detail on earlier, please don't hesitate either to ask during the webinar or to contact any of the change team or myself, because certainly there's no secrets, and if there's anything we can help you with, more than happy to do so. So today we'll go through. How do I? Oh, thank you. We'll really mainly focus on the advice model and the service offer for this group, and just touch lightly on the other areas which are in much more detail for the planners and the CSOs. As I mentioned before, the purpose is to give you an understanding of the changes ahead so that you can inform your team and just understand what's going on within the financial planning part of the business. So if we move to the next slide, if you look at the box down the bottom right-hand side, the transition to the single advice business that commences, that it will occur in a series of 4 tranches that happen every month starting the 2nd of July, and the last one will occur on the 2nd of October. That transition is really only getting us to the beginning of the journey. It is day 1. And it will take probably the next year or 2, if not even a little bit longer, to really develop the business model and execute against our objective within the financial planning business, which is where we are committed to the fact that our clients and our people will be our best advocates. That we are focusing time and effort on client outcomes, not the process, which with some of our technology challenges at the time across both businesses really will remain a distraction, particularly in this first part of the transition. We very much want to make sure that we are living our advice beliefs or our financial planning beliefs, which are beliefs about how we actually provide financial planning and advice and service within State Plus's corporate values and brand strategy. And most importantly, that we are all proud of the quality of advice and services that we provide, again, very much within State Plus's and First State's united objective of member first and client centricity. So whilst that might be really obvious, it is very much our anchor point for why we are doing this transition of the single advice business. The exciting thing about putting two successful financial planning businesses together that have really want to achieve the same outcomes for clients, but have historically had similar but different client bases, is that we can develop a new business model that will be able to provide that quality advice and services to both those types of clients. And what those two types of clients are the traditional State Plus client base, which has been members of the STC funds. And those members have had lump sum benefits, and therefore, whilst there is certainly benefit provided to those clients receiving advice in the pre-retirement stage, they have a promised benefit, and quite frankly, in most instances, a pretty generous promised benefit. So their major need is about, when I retire, I am now going to be responsible for looking after that money. And so advice is about, how do I manage that money in retirement? That is also very much the need for the other major client base, which is the First State Super members. They definitely need that advice too. But because those members do not have a promised benefit and are in an accumulation fund, one of their biggest stresses and I very much know this now from regrettably suddenly falling into the target market of the pre-retiree client base, of being within 10 years of age 65, is that I and other members don't have a promised benefit. So there's a major need of many of them to say, how can you help me organise myself over the next 5 to 10 years to retirement so that I have enough that you can then help me again with what to do with that in retirement. In other words, providing advice to First State Super members at retirement is almost too late. It is still very helpful, but if we can provide a more comprehensive pre-retirement advice to them when they're 5 to 10 years out, that's most important. So in effect, we've put together a business model that will allow our clients to have an ongoing relationship with their planner in two ways. And we feel this will allow us to better meet the needs of those two target client bases. And previously in both organisations, we have either provided the advice to them on an ongoing basis. In State Plus, that's called life advice. In First State, that's called ongoing review service. Or we have provided them with once-off advice. And in First State, that is just called providing them with an SOA. In State Plus, that was called providing them with an event advice. But it was all or nothing, and there was not much in between. And so what we're doing is enabling clients in the new model to have an ongoing relationship with us in two ways, where they can have that very structured existing life advice or ongoing review service with us, where they continue to pay us an ongoing fee. They pay every month or every quarter, and that will give clients access to an advisor throughout the year and allow them to ring up at any time and get advice. Or we are introducing a new relationship, which we haven't got a proper name for yet. We're calling it an ad hoc advice relationship. We're actually going to have a competition to come up with a good name for it. that I'm sure you will all be keen to enter, which quite frankly is a normal professional services advice relationship. If any of you have a relationship with your family doctor or possibly with your accountant, you would expect that when you go and see that your doctor or your accountant, you pay for that service as and when you receive advice. And you might go and see your doctor in 9 months' time, or you might go and not see him for another 2 years, but you will receive advice then driven by the client need. So we are in effect going to allow clients to engage with us either in the traditional retainer ongoing advice way that we have, both businesses have had, or in a more traditional professional services model. Clients can, of course, continue to engage with us on a one-off advice basis. Can I just check whether there is any questions from those that are not in the room in Sydney on that issue? Oh, okay. No questions? Okay. The other key message is that more a difference from the State Plus perspective is that therefore we will be having a greater focus on clients being able to just pay for the service that they are receiving at the time and not always going into an ongoing life advice arrangement. This is a change for the State Plus business in that it requires fees to be positioned much earlier in the conversation. As I mentioned before, it is too late for First State Super members to wait until they are closer to retirement to receive advice. There's an urgency there. And so in effect, clients will have fees positioned to them in their first or second appointment, but not because we are positioning fees, more because we are positioning the fact that they have the opportunity to receive advice that will help them maximise the amount of money that they have at retirement. And if they want to receive that advice and receive that value, that obviously comes at a cost. So that is a major change in the way that State Plus advisors will be working. It's not so much a change for the way that First State Super advisors will be working. The fourth message is the one on the right-hand side in the middle, which is obviously as the First State Super employees transition over to become State Plus employees in those 4 tranches in the second half of calendar 2018, their clients will also transition with them. And as you may recall from previous packs, the ongoing service fee is becoming an asset-based fee. And there have been technology issues that we have battled with over over a year to see if we can resolve that. We've unfortunately not been able to. That has meant that we have decided we're going to quarantine the existing First State Super ORS clients as a group and manage them separately for the next 2 years. The reason that we have made that decision is that it will allow us to continue to service them as they've been serviced, but it will allow us to grandfather their non-asset-based fee, their existing fixed fee that they pay at $1,980 or $2,750 per annum, and they will be able to have that fee fixed for the next 2 years and still have it deducted from their First State Super or State Plus investment balance. And we just feel that that's important to support the First State Super clients' transition to the new world. Oh, beg your pardon, Mike. I'm referring to slide 5, which is the key message slide. And specifically the box on the right-hand side in the middle. Does that help you?
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. And so certainly the First State Super planners feel that are very glad about that and think that will be a good way for the First State Super members to transition and become used to just working, quite frankly, with their same advisor, but within the State Plus environs, and then be better placed to move into the new model in a few years' time. The fifth key message is on that same slide 5, is the box in the middle, which is just that all insurance advice, that is a new capability for State Plus. We will be providing, able to provide insurance advice to all whether their heritage is State Plus, STC fund, or the First State Super Fund. And that advice will be referred either to insurance specialists who are based at 4 or 5 of the combined State Plus offices, or the SAT team, and they'll be referred to the SAT team where the insurance advice is limited to the insurance that they have within the First State Super Fund. Luke, I know that's probably less of an interest for you going forward, but we did some back testing, and really that meant sort of only about another 150 calls through to the SAT team over the whole year. So we're not expecting that that's going to cause any significant capacity issues. That is quite a big change. Oh, beg your pardon, was there a question there? No?
No, I think there's a bit of lag on the line, so I was just agreeing that's fine.
Okay, great. And that is a change, will be a change for the First State Super advisors, because the face-to-face First State Super advisors have up until now provided advice as part of their BAU, but we really felt that it was just too hard for Luke's service centre team, for the hub client service team, to be trying to be triaging clients to only First State Super, Heritage First State Super advisors or State Plus advisors. We just thought it was simpler to say no face-to-face advisor will initially be providing insurance advice. And as I say, we're just getting to day 1 of transition, and we expect that over the next year or 2 there will be a major program to build capability across all of the financial planners in State Plus to be able to provide insurance advice, but that will come as capacity allows.
you doing that capability, you might be looking at doing every planner, but more looking at whether or not they were interested in doing that capability. That certainly came up when we were going through our consultation, where they actually flagged that some of their planners, if they were told that they needed to have this capability, they don't want to touch it with large cost. So there's sort of general consensus that rather than saying everybody will build that capability, it will be looking at it from on a case-by-case basis as to what the needs are of the business.
Right.
Is that right?
Certainly, the original Plan A that was some time ago before we needed to move to minimum viable product. That was not the model. But now that we are reassessing the model, there's actually a meeting next week where we are going to look at what might our go-forward position be, given there has in the interim since our original Plan A been more feedback, and so that Plan A decision may well be revisited. Yeah.
Is this on the other one?
No.
Yeah. When you were talking about the change in instead of full positioning the first or second meeting, I'd imagine that some of those plans that would be challenging given their ongoing relationships with their clients. So obviously the IMs are key to being able to drive that change, but how do you, what are some of the strategies to help them get over the line and changing their mindset and behaviours?
Yes. Well, what will help is actually been one of our major constraints, which is that if a client is in pre-retirement and therefore by definition for the First State Super members still in a First State super fund, we are unable to deduct life advice fees from them. So we're not able to put them on life advice even if we wanted to, and unfortunately even if the client wanted to. So therefore the only way that we can deal with members who with First State Super members whose money is properly still in First State Super is to provide event advice. And if they do want an ongoing relationship, whilst it can't be life advice, it can be that they just agree, like your doctor might say, Jack, will I book you in for an appointment in 12 months' time? We'll book them in, but it will book them in where they know that when they come in 12 months' time, like with your doctor, they'll have to pay for that appointment. Yeah. So, as I say, the fact that they can't do it will, in effect, put more of a need for the State Plus planner to have to learn the skills. We're still working on the plans, but it's mainly, one of the reasons why the next key message, which is the one up the top on the right-hand side, where we are going to be blending teams, and in effect all officers will have both Heritage First State and Heritage State Plus, is so that they can get peer support. And there's also going to be a major program to support regional managers being able to coach in that area. Duncan, as Head of Operations in Financial Planning, is also going to have a couple of roles that will be able to provide extra support and coaching support in those areas. Yeah. So would we, and just one other thing is the whole client engagement project that Mike's so involved with, really that provides a wonderful framework. And we really want to leverage off that. And so Tony Bezewski and Mike's project there will be really important in taking that forward and making that live and continuous improvement in that area. Okay. Oh, beg your pardon. I will repeat the question beforehand. I'm so sorry. I assumed you were able to hear. You heard that answer, but it was really just about how were we going to be able to support State Plus advisors learn how to position event fees. So I hope that made sense. So that's all I wanted to speak to on that slide. Are there any particular questions? Okay. We'll go to the next slide, which is a slide that came out of the Capgemini session that many of you as leaders might have attended at the end of last year in Sydney. But that's just really providing an overall group view of all the projects that are in train, across both organisations, obviously from having a coherent member experience through to employee mobility and through to having a single advice business. And so that's really just giving you the context of what we are talking about now. And then, of course, recognising that other projects are in place, such as single view of members and clients and the like. Luke, particularly in your area, Acurity, for BTS people on the line, Blue Door. It's just saying single advice business is just a cog in the overall strategic plan. On the right-hand side is that aspiration of where we're looking to move to that I took you through at the beginning of this of the webinar. But this slide is really explaining how day one, on the left-hand side up the top, we will start being a professional services firm where clients can engage on their own terms because we have got an expanded advice business model and service offer, where now at least the team is united as one, and including physically on the journey to preeminence to make a difference for our clients. And recognising that we will have just a focus on client outcomes, not sales, and that we've got the opportunity of being able to help clients from now a broader range, from both accumulation and a defined benefit funds. But you will see that we are being open with everybody by the visual underneath that day one, there will be storm clouds. We are unable to amend all the technology to make this as efficient as we would like it. We will have it operating in a few years' time. There will initially be manual workarounds, but essentially, particularly with the advisors, we're spending a lot of time on this in the next slide to really draw out how we're going to be putting in place the technology that will support them in the back office so that it is less clunky in the back office. And that will be tough on them. But the main thing is that from day one, that it's not clunky to the clients, and that is within our control in terms of how we speak with our clients and how we interact with them. There's actually no need for them to see how clunky it is. That probably might not be quite true in that there will be, in some instances, an extra phone transfer sometimes between Luke's service centre team and the hub, whereas we'd prefer that to be a bit more seamless. But I think with the way that those people manage that so beautifully on the phone with the clients won't feel that is a clunky transfer. But it will take a year or two for us, to deal with, I'm sure, some unintended consequences that will become obvious that we haven't even identified yet, but also to build the technology solutions both in Acuity and in the State Plus systems that will make this so much more efficient for all of us. The next slide is a horrendously busy slide that I won't take you through today. Is more of a detail that's there that's really important at an operational level for the planners and the CSOs. Will not be so relevant to your teams of the audience on this webinar. But read it through, and there's speaker notes underneath it. But it's really just painting a picture for the advisors and the CSOs of how we see their world will evolve, and we'll address some of the issues over the next 6 months, year, 2 years. If you have got any particular questions on it, just give me a buzz. Archie, do you mind changing? Are there any questions there? No? Can you move to the next slide? I feel I'm always about to do something terribly wrong. And the next one. With this slide, with the advice model, really I think I've spoken with you through the main change, which is the green boxes, which is that we are splitting the life advice and the event advice into 3 types of services and advice offerings, where 2 of those on the left-hand side, the ongoing advice and the ad hoc advice relationship, will be now 2 ways that we can have ongoing relationships with our clients. Luke, you'll see, particularly this is relevant to you, you will see over on the right-hand side up the top, we've got clients that we are calling unadvised. In the next pack, we're going to correct that language to self-directed, which is language you'd be more familiar with, I'm sure, in some of the projects that you're involved with. And in effect, there is a separate parallel project being run for all the members of First State Super, and in the future, all the members of State Plus who don't have an advice relationship. They're investors and members of our superannuation or our income stream funds, but they have chosen not to have an advice relationship. And the service offer that they will get is being worked on in a separate project that David Coyne and Amanda Ralph from First State Super are running. Now, on the advice side, the way that the advisors work with the clients to determine what is the right sort of service and advice relationship that is needed, that is driven by, obviously, client needs, behavioural segmentation, which State Plus has has a really good existing framework that the First State Super advisors will be trained on, and business rules. And of course, there will be remain the choice of channel of face-to-face or phone. And we will also looking in the next year to be trialling advice over VC out of N's hub team and direct advice team. And so there will effectively be 3 phone advice teams operating under the what was formerly called the State Plus Client Hub. 1 will provide intra-fund advice to members of First State Super. So that team is an existing team. They're based in Melbourne, and they have, moment and historically have been part of Luke's team, who's on the line today, and they provide advice at no cost to members that is within the legal definition of intra-fund. It's really simple advice about maximising their super within First State Super. So that's things like contribution levels, insurance, rolling over to into the income stream and the like. And First State has decided to provide that important service, but because of licensing reasons and the like, that service will actually continue but be outsourced to State Plus to run through N's Hub team. There'll also be 2 teams providing comprehensive advice. They're going to be called the DAP team for, I don't know why, but it stands for Direct Advice Team. And one of those teams is the existing Wollongong State Plus team, but it's exciting that there will also be a new Melbourne-based comprehensive direct advice team as well that N will start recruiting for in the next couple of months. And that team will own clients in their own right. And so, for both businesses, this model broadens the advice model. Coralie's worrying that I'm not getting through the slides, but because all the examples at the back are quite specific client examples, I was planning not to go through those in detail because my assumption is that's just far too much detail outside of the financial planning team. But if I have misjudged that and you would like information on those detailed client scenarios, again, please don't hesitate to give me a buzz. Next slide. Yes, really the fact that we are providing the professional services way of having an ongoing relationship is really just to make our target market greater. It is not just to cannibalise our existing number of members and split them across 2 offers. We're hoping that this will appeal to more of our members. And this is particularly relevant because many, I think both on the First State Super and State Plus, have been confused about what will State Plus advisors, who will State Plus advisors provide advice to, and will we be providing advice to 30-year-olds? How does it work? Really, both First State and State Plus advice teams have principally provided advice at when people were in pre-retirement or retirement stage. So that is not a change. The SAT team has mainly dealt with the queries that came from those under 55. However, of course, if there is a member of any age who absolutely feels that they have not been able to have their advice need met by the SAT team and who want face-to-face advice, of course, they will be able to come through to a face-to-face advisor and we will look after them. But we have found that that really doesn't happen that often. Okay, next. Oh, sorry, I've got to click. Slide. This has been a slide that was in previous packs that you would have been taken through. So really, just more as a refresher, I would remind you that the First State Super walk-in option, which is that First State Super members would, in the first instance, normally phone through to the service centre that that Luke manages. But when we started setting up offices that were branded First State Super, needless to say, some ended up, dropping in and found that helpful, where they could just get face-to-face support. And so that is going to continue, and all advice officers will be able to provide support to any First State Super member at a factual and product information level only. That is not advice, but they'll be able to give them forms and the like. But Luke, what's particularly relevant to your area is that there are a couple of places where there are 2 advice officers. For example, there's going to be 2 advice officers in Newcastle, in Parramatta, in Wollongong. Only one of those will have sufficient additional staff to be able to cope with the volume of inquiries. And so we will be asking the service centre and the website to only drive walk-ins to one of those offices, which is the Heritage First State Super pink billboard office. And the other office, the former State Plus one, if somebody finds them on the 3rd floor, they will definitely be able to be serviced, but it's just that we won't drive people there, if that makes sense. And we're also just as a refresher showing on this slide that for the reasons I spoke about before, which are technology ones, and where we are unable to charge an asset-based fee on the pillar program and have that money appropriately remitted into State Plus and feed into asset required obligations such as an annual fee disclosure statement and all sorts of things like that that are getting a bit of press at the moment in the Royal Commission. This slide shows that life advice and the ORS service are only going to be able to be provided in post-retirement. But as I mentioned before, if somebody in pre-retirement does want an ongoing relationship, they can get that, but just not by paying a retainer fee every month or every quarter. They'll be able to get it by coming in more frequently and paying advice as they go. And I would just draw to your attention, or when you're talking to your teams, the blue shaded boxes are services where fees are charged. The yellow shaded boxes are services where there is no cost to the service. And I would explain that up until now, and certainly until transition, First State Super advisors also provide intra-fund advice. In the new world, only SAT advice will be providing intra-fund advice. But that's because I'm using the legal definition of what intra-fund advice is. And that is advice that is of a certain description prescribed in the law that is paid for by the fund itself. And the fund is paying, as I said, it's outsourcing the service to the SAT team, so it's paying for the SAT team. But the fund is not paying for the face-to-face advisors that are working within the State Plus business. So State Plus advisors will continue to provide intra-fund advice, except it's not called intra-fund because it's not paid for by First State Super, but the same content and the same type of advice about maximising super. They will still provide that advice to clients, and they will provide it at no cost, as they always have, and quite frankly, as State Plus always has. State Plus has always provided that maximising super advice to STC clients at no cost in the same way. So the model actually continues at a practical level as has existed in both organisations, but we're just no longer using the intra-fund word when it comes to advice that's being provided by State Plus, by the face-to-face advisors or the DAT team, because it's not technically being paid for by First State, and quite frankly may be a little bit broader than what is necessarily allowed for under intra-fund. Does that make sense, or have I confused everybody? Okay. So that is really the main, I think, part of the pack that I think your teams will be interested in, other than perhaps, Archie, if we can go through to the insurance advice specialist model. These the examples for Jack and is it Margaret are there for you. I think the change team have done a wonderful job with the notes. I think you'll find them very self-explanatory if members of your team are wanting to actually see how the work example of a client, but I won't go through that now. But if, Archie, you can go through to the insurance advice model. Thank you. I think in First State and State Plus alike, again, there are some changes here that's just worth you being across. We spoke before about how now the only people providing insurance advice across both organisations at a personal level will be the specialist advisors and will be the SAP team. And so just this little flow chart, I think, is helpful. If there is a client need for insurance advice, and Luke, it says here identified by a planner, but obviously that would be also if it was identified by your service centre team as well, or if a member rang in saying, I've got a query about insurance. The thought process would go, is the client a First State Super member? If the answer is no, well, they'd be referred straight to what will now be a State Plus insurance specialist. If the answer is yes, is the question in relation to their First State Super only? If the answer is yes, they go to the SAP team. If the answer is yes, it's about my First State Super Fund, but it's also about my other insurances, which happens often more with doctors or some of our, we don't have a lot of members in this category, but self-employed members and the like. Those queries can't be answered by the SAP team. SAP can only answer queries with regard to the First State Super Fund only. And so those queries would continue to go through to the insurance specialist. So, Luke, that's not really a change for your team other than if they're transferring it to the insurance specialist. It's just that now that insurance specialist is in State Plus, whereas it used to be in First State. So they're the main areas in the pack that I hope are of benefit to your teams, and we would really appreciate you cascading the information down to them. But I should just check with you whether hopefully I haven't confused you, but if you've got any other questions or you're getting questions from your team that someone here might be able to help you with.
No, I think it's.
How do we make sure that Jack can be heard?
It's Jay. It's fortunate because I have been involved in quite a lot of civil advice work. However, I think for the rest of the business in the support areas, they really had very little exposure. So I think this presentation is fantastic, Sal, and the way you presented it.
Yeah, there's guys.
So whoever's pulled it together, it's fantastic. It's really, I think, it tells a story really well. It's simplistic. It uses terminology that people can actually understand. So I think it's a really good reinforcement for me, who's already been doing this. But I think for the next level down, it's a great presentation. So well done.
Thank you. Now, Aki, can I, anyone else, Luke, in your area, are there any particular concerns or questions? Mike?
Nothing for me.
Okay, thank you. And thank you, Layla. Well, if that's the,
I was just going to say, so you might want to mention that as they go out and share this with their teams, if there are questions that come up, to use the
Oh, okay. Coralie was just reminding me to mention to you that if, as you share it with your teams, questions come up, I've kept saying give the change team or myself a call, which you are certainly welcome to do. But there is a more transparent process that allows everybody to see every question and every answer, which is to use the wiki. Now, that's available to State Plus people. It's available to the First State Financial Planning team. Is it also available to, for example, Luke's client service, member service centre team in Melbourne? No, I don't think it is either. So, Luke, if there are any questions, it's better that you come back through Anne, myself, or any members of the change team who've sent you these emails, and we're happy to help. Thank you, everybody. Really appreciate your time. Bye. Yeah, you have little faith. No. Rox, I regrettably. No. But I hope you don't mind, but I really did think going through Jack and Margaret, it was not where the audience was going to be. And they asked if they do want to be there, the notes are very self-explanatory.
There's so much change. I'm hearing it over and over again. So I think for the rest of the business.
And this is our biggest issue with the RMs. I think the RHs, they've been hearing it for ages. But even yesterday when we were preparing for the RM day on next week, for a couple of questions from the RHs, us take think through all those implications and percolate.
And you know what?
I know. And that's what we're trying to get people for with day one.
Great work, Sam.
That's nice. Thank you.
Before you go, just quickly, do you want me to incorporate that into the notes? So ask the person, this is the person that does.
No, this is actually a big issue. So, in effect, what is happening in that? Let's check where I'm meant to be.
Oh yeah, we can catch